Good evening, everyone. It is a Monday night, and we are back with another round of DJNTV shows. Welcome and thank you. And it's just awesome to be here, Drax.
It is great to be here. I'm so excited to be talking about photo booths.
We are. We were just at Photo Booth Expo, and I think, wow.
Photo Booth Expo was amazing. I mean, when I contrast a show 3 years old using over 100,000 square feet of exhibit space, over 3,000 attendees, that's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing. I mean, and that's real measurable attendees. That's not the quote unquote vapor numbers we typically see.
We haven't put the video up yet. Jeremy, when they opened up the door to the exhibit hall, he was doing a voiceover, and I don't think we put it up because I was just looking at it today as I was editing some videos. This crowd, I mean, it is as close to reminiscent to the early days of DJ Expo.
Yep.
When the doors would open, and here's this flow, and it just keeps going for several minutes. It's like, wow, is it?
Yeah, I mean, our booth was right on the door, and it was at least 10 to 15 minutes of a consistent, strong flow going in the door.
Yeah,
it was a big crowd.
Yeah, it was a fun show. Tonight, gang, we're gonna break tonight's show into three parts. We're gonna be talking about the difference between selling our services, because at Photo Booth Expo, a lot of you that were talking to me were sharing you're coming from the DJ world to the photo booth world, or a photographer coming to the photo booth, decorators coming in and looking to add this to. So we're gonna talk the difference about selling what we are used to and selling a photo booth service. Second part, we're gonna talk about creating a demand for our photo booth, and in the last part, we're gonna talk about should one do a DIY photo booth. So, Drax, there's our breakdowns.
Excellent.
So let's dive into this first one. Again, at the show, I had a lot of people who were coming up and saying, hey, we are obviously the DJs are going to come up to you and I because they're used to us. But
sure.
In the elevators, photographers who are like, I've got a photography thing and I've done a little bit, but now I want to get a full photo booth. And one of the areas in which they did talk about was, but I have to sell this differently. And let's start. Give some thoughts on that.
You don't actually have to sell it differently. If you're selling your photography as pictures, as a product, then you need to sell it differently. If you're selling your DJ service as giveaways and speakers and amps and media players and controllers and computers, you don't probably have to sell it differently because you're selling. Well, you have to sell it differently because you're selling a product.
Right.
In those cases, with photo booth, yes, there's a product component, which is the picture, either a printed picture or one that's shared through social media. But in the end, what people really buy are feelings. People buy feelings. People aren't looking for a photo booth just so they can have one more picture of themselves. I mean, hello, let me take a selfie. Oh, excuse me, do you mind?
Yeah, go
ahead.
Exactly.
Let me take a selfie. Boom. There you go. So, I mean, it's kind of like, we are inundated with pictures of ourselves. People don't need a photo booth to get yet another picture of themselves. What they want is a picture that captures a memory, that captures a feeling. And the feeling is created by the photo booth operator, not the props, not the other things, not the booth. It's captured by the booth, but it's created by the operator who skillfully revs the crowd up. If you go to a sporting game, let's just say you go to watch the Phoenix Suns or the Milwaukee Timberwolves. Well, in the end of the day, what do they have? They have some cheerleaders, and that's interesting, but they also have some kind of a mascot working with a DJ. And what does that person do? They pump the crowd.
Hype in the crowd, yeah.
They hype the crowd. And what you have to do as a photo booth operator is remember your job is to hype the crowd. Get the crowd having fun. Make being in your booth extremely fun. So if you're a photographer, I would say it's less important to have the perfect picture than it is to have a great picture. Perfect is the enemy of great.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because you can spend all this time futzing trying to have absolutely 100% perfect pictures to the point you might slow down the process, which ultimately people aren't going to be happy if they wait in line for 30 minutes to get in your booth.
Yes.
You want to cycle it. You want that printer cranking as fast as it'll go. So you want good/great. I lean toward great, but not perfect. You know, certainly perfect is an objective to shoot for, as long as you can do it maintaining a high volume experience, because that allows more people to experience the photo booth. Now, if you're a disc jockey, you got to think about this as like a dance floor. Well, you can either play all the songs that you think people want, or you can play the songs that get people on the dance floor, even if you've played them 1,000 times. So you have to think about the photo booth. The best thing to do is get people engaged in the photo booth, is make it fun.
Yep.
The more fun you make it, the more they're going to want to do it, the more they're going to want to come back, do other things, because in the end, what they really want is an experience.
Exactly.
And they want to capture that or codify that experience on film or via Snapchat or PicPic Social or any of the other means that allow you to pop and share what you did at the photo booth. But ultimately, client satisfaction is going to be a direct reflection of consumer satisfaction, which will be everybody else that didn't pay you. And so when a bride and groom or a company looks at the photo booth and they're looking at their budget for their next year's party, they want to look back and go, you remember how many people? There was a huge line for the photo booth and people were laughing, having fun. That's going to be a positive indicator they want to bring a photo booth back to the party.
For sure.
If the photo booth was largely empty, no traffic, no real energy around it, or God forbid the photo booth says, oh, let me set up in the hallway so I don't have to put up lights. We all know photo boothers that do this. That's dumb, folks. Be where the party is, because where the party is where the booth wants to be. If I'm running a booth, I don't ask the DJ to tell people to come to the photo booth. It's my job to make them want to come to the photo booth by making it fun, inviting, open, friendly, a fun experience. And I do that by being in the room where the party happens. If you're outside, you're not where the party happens, and you're wanting another aspect of the party to bleed the party off to you. That's just frankly not going to happen.
No.
And so be where the party is. Remember that creating memories is the single most important thing you can do for the guests at the party. And when those memories are captured on film, bingo, it's going to be magic. You're going to have great reviews and you're going to get great business.
There's going to be some keywords, because you mentioned, of course, we're selling the fun and the emotion and the feeling of that. That's where we have to be aiming for. So there's going to be some keywords, that fun being one of them, that we're selling fun, we're selling excitement, we're selling the memories, and those are the types of things I think that sometimes we start to forget, that we're so focused on making sure we have the best gear, and that camera is 70,000 megapixels, and that printer can set them up, can print out pictures. I mean, I saw on a flyer the other day that a gentleman did for his photo booth. It had on there that the printer could print out. It was the fastest printer ever, and it would come out in 3 seconds. Whatever it was. How is that fun to me? No. Maybe if a person wanted to make that, you could say something about maybe that your guests won't have to wait; they can get right back into the excitement and fun. But it's
not really a selling feature unless you're pitching a corporate event where they're expecting, say, 1,500 or 2,000 people. Then you want to be able to say, and because we specialize in high-end events with large audiences, we'll have several booths all running high-speed printers, because that will allow more people to experience the photo booth. Then it becomes a solution to a problem they hadn't probably thought about, of why it would be important to have a photo booth that had high throughput. But if you're talking an average party with 200 people, having a photo booth that prints out an image in a second and a half or 3 seconds versus one that does it in 5 or 8 is arguably not noticeable to the consumer or to the guest or to the client.
It takes me back to Bill Herman a couple of weeks ago used the asking the question why. And I could see that really becoming an important thing, because if I'm talking to a corporate and they're like, hey, we're thinking about a photo booth, and sometimes asking that question of, so why were you guys thinking photo booth? And they might say, because we've got a lot of people and we want to have some fun, but we've got 1,000 people that are going to come through. They're going to tell me now what's important to them in making that sales connection with them. Talking to a bride. Well, so you were thinking photo, why would you want that? Well, because my friend had it and it was so much fun, and we had, now she's giving you some of the key things to be able to give her that reassurance that, yes, this is the right decision and it's going to work because it can do these things that you're wanting it to do and create this atmosphere you're wanting to create.
And yet most people will not ask that question, why do you want a photo booth? Because they think it would prejudice them against not being hired, when really it's the opening question that tells you what their motivations are. What problem are they looking to solve with a photo booth? Is it they just want a photo booth because every other wedding they've been to had a photo booth and they feel like we must have one too, or our wedding will be viewed as less exemplary? The end result is it never hurts to ask pointed questions. Pointed questions lead you to answers that allow you to sell better. That allows you to communicate your value better. In the case of a 1,000-person event, you'd say, well, the reason I ask is because I'm looking to see what your thoughts are on themes. You're looking for wild and crazy comic books. You're looking for just signs. You're looking for what kind of environment, upscale and classy, because now I can respond with backdrops and props and other elements that fit what they're looking for. Does that make sense?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I had one conversation with a bride about 2 years ago, and they wanted the nostalgia feel of a photo booth.
Sure.
And the photo booth I was using at the time wouldn't fit that, and it was like because Grandpa remembered as a kid going to the dime store and putting the money in and doing the photo booth, and he thought that was the coolest thing. So she wanted to have one there so that they could have that as a family time.
Yep.
Fabulous. There, she just gave me my sales pitch. The problem was I couldn't fulfill her needs, and instead of doing a typical DJ thing or a typical small business person that's a little bit shady and say, "Oh, I'll make it happen," and then not be able to fulfill it and bring in something she didn't want, I sent her to someone who had more of that look for her day.
And that's what we really should do, because when we sell what we have and not what we don't, nothing frustrates me worse than to go on the Photo Booth Network or any place and listen to people regale, I just booked a green screen event. Can anybody tell me how to do it? Can anybody tell me where to get some green screen backdrop images? Can anybody tell me how to light it? Can anybody tell me what to do? My answer is don't sell what you don't do.
Yes.
You want to do green screen? Get the equipment, set it up in your living room.
Practice.
Test it. Practice, practice, practice. I tell that to DJs. If you want to be great, practice. If you want to be great at photo booth green screen, practice. If you want to have great images, practice. Know lighting variations, know your camera, know the depth of field, know the various elements that go into the picture, and practice until you can consistently always hit great.
Because there's nothing worse than getting to an event and it's like, oh wait, the equipment isn't working right.
Yeah,
well,
and for those DJs and photographers out there that are thinking about that a photo booth represents a portable ATM, wrong. Wrong. There is more ways to lose money with a photo booth than there is with any other thing. But that isn't that it's bad. It's just any business endeavor you step into without a plan is a recipe for disaster. So when you do it, decide why you want to do it, decide what your market will support, have data to back it up, because then your investment into a photo booth enterprise as an adjunct means you won't sell it for cheap. You won't use it as a lever to book the photography or to book the DJ, because you'll realize there are real hard costs in owning and operating a photo booth service. And therefore, you're going to realize there's no way I can throw it in for $300 because it's not 6 you get egg roll. You throw it in for $300, you probably gave them $200.
Shane, can you explain a little bit more about the question? Get the gig, get the gear. I think I know what you mean by that, but I want you to clarify before we jump on that, and then we'll segue to our next segment here tonight. But I want to make sure we get that one before we switch gears here, Drax. So we'll just kind of hang for a second here. Neither is YouTube. What are we having issues with feed tonight? For those of you who haven't had a chance yet, we've been putting up Photo Booth Expo videos from the booths, the booth interview. Between Jeremy and myself, we had, I think, over 100 different interviews that we did at the show, and we didn't even hit everybody. We were trying to get around and do some things and get most of the ones that And yes, you guys, you'll go through and you won't see one from the Photo Booth Association because Drax is going to come on the show and we're going to talk about the Photo Booth Association in a separate show all by itself. So
plus we were so busy with people, we couldn't
that's
squeeze you in.
exactly what it was. It's like,
was crazy.
We know Drax and I know how to get a hold of him and we'll get that one. So, okay, hang on.
Absolutely.
The old DJ motto, they always say upsell, get the gig, get the gear. Same for the booth.
No, don't upsell. Don't get the gear, get the gig. No, don't sell what you don't have. Buy the gear, know how to use it, and then sell it. I don't like upsells. To me, upsells are a really stupid thing because you're transferring your value into an inanimate object. If you say, well, I can add a photo booth for $800 or some number of dollars as an upsell, but your real fee needs to be $2,500, you're shifting subconsciously value from your service and your talent as the operator owner to an asset, to a hard, tangible asset.
Yep.
You'll find people that'll spend a lot of time talking about, I have the latest photo party upload, LA photo party booth, I have a Min booth, an Aura booth, and they focus on the hardware to the point the consumer is convinced that what matters is the hardware. And so when you think about an upsell, upsells need to be, in my mind, done as packages. You need to talk to them, as we started, ask what they're looking for, get the information what they're looking for, and then you bundle it. You give them a price that includes photo booth with photography, photo booth with disc jockey service, but never devaluing the photo booth component of it. Yes, there's a little bit of slice you can do on either side as a package, but never discount the intrinsic value of your photo booth because you wouldn't do it with your photography and you wouldn't do it with your DJ service. And I've seen DJs do this with uplights. What did they do? They basically made it so every venue went out and bought uplights.
Yes. We see
now
that.
There's really not a market for uplights. When you do this kind of nickel and dime nonsense, you encourage other opportunistic people to get into the business that are actually farther up the food chain than you. You don't want to do things that would encourage a venue to want to be in the photo booth business. Rather, you want to be there set up before the party, so when they bring their prospective guests in, you rave about the venue and tell them how awesome it is to work there. And by the way, who do you think the photo booth company they're going to want to refer and reference to? It's going to be you because you uptalk their facility.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's lots of views on how to approach sales. I tend to take a different approach. I don't like to compartmentalize things or piecemeal it. I like to discover the needs and build a package that suits that becomes the solution to their problem or their objective.
One last word on this area, because I've got a friend who is actually in New Zealand, and he had his DJ company, and they were struggling to charge $1,200 for their DJ company. He went and purchased basically a freestanding photo booth for each of his DJ systems, repackaged it, and now he's selling the DJ and the photo booth. He calls it their wedding fun package because you're going to have the fun on the dance floor, you're going to have the fun. They changed their sales pitch. Now they're selling the combined things for $2,500.
Yeah.
So that's,
you know why?
Way above.
Because they looked to provide a unified solution, an all in there. When we all think about vacations, who doesn't think about sandals? It's all there. Love is all you need. You don't got to bring your money. You spend your money, put your wallet in the safe when you get there, and you don't spend beads. You just have fun. When you sell your customers the same ideology of all inclusive, they feel confident. They feel comfortable that, there's no hidden surprises. The photo booth's not going to hit me up for overtime because photography went long, or they're not going to hit me up for overtime. They're not going to tear down in the middle of the party. Take a clue from people that spend millions in market research. There's a reason that Sandals does what they do, because they are the go-to vacation for so many people. Now, it doesn't take away from the Hilton and all the other beachside resorts in the Caymans and other places, but rather it tailors to people that want to have a complete solution, if you will.
Yep.
They just want to know what their buy-in is and be confident they're getting everything for their buy-in.
Okay, we're gonna put a pin in that one because I want to get to the next area so we can make sure we hit all three of our areas, Drax.
Awesome.
The next one I want to talk about is a little bit about creating demand. Obviously, you and I started in the entertainment world and figured a way to create demand, and there's going to be a little bit of carryover from our first segment. But that's a struggle that a lot of the photo booth folks were talking about, is that I've got a photo booth and that person down the street's now got one and that one's got one. How can I create demand, set myself apart in this now kind of busy and crowded world?
Well, that all comes back to, why should I hire you? What's your unique selling proposition? If you don't do anything different than the guy down the street to the left or the guy up the block to the right, then unfortunately, whoever of the three of you is going to be the lowest price will get the event. Because if all three of you are saying, I have an Infinite booth, I have an Aura booth, a Mobi booth, a Min booth, a whatever have you booth, an open air photo booth, a Snapden booth, at the end, it's going to come down to, they're going to go with what's cheapest. Because here's the reality. Everybody shops on value, or in the absence of value, I should say, everyone shops on price. We all do it. If we want a Honda Kia Soul, we look at, that light is just going to have to go off. We look at, where's the cheapest place and way that I can actually buy that vehicle.
Yeah.
Why? Because we've listed it down to a commoditization. If you commoditize your photo booth service, you will be compelled to be at the bottom end of the pricing. So rather, let's look for ways to differentiate you. And here's the other part that's difficult. The average consumer is not going to take and judge the quality of your photos as being exceptional. Rather, the average consumer is going to judge your photos, are they as good as what I get here? And if they take as good of pictures as they get on their iPhone, they're probably not going to get too bothered about it. So you've got a little bit of education about why your better images are better. And that comes down to, well, if you wanted enlargements of these later, if you wanted a photo album of 4x6s or bigger, that would be possible because we have captured pristine, excellent quality, high resolution images.
And how awesome would it be to have that image of grandma and grandpa, one of their last photos, probably before one of them got sick, but that they were having fun, they were being silly, and you've got this, you can blow it up and have this beautiful picture of them. That's
exactly it. And so now this comes back to, what is the value of that picture?
Yes.
A lot. But if it's grandma and grandpa looking like that picture, I don't remember who the artist is, but it's grandma and grandpa out standing in front of the house.
Oh, with the pitchfork.
With the pitchfork, looking somber. Is that really a picture anybody cares about? Not so much. So what you got to consider is, how do I create energy that makes grandma and grandpa alive? But what the picture captures is their best self, their most vibrant, youthful, fun self that captures the spirit, the essence of their personality. That's what you have to have. And what you have to be able to show somebody is, oh yeah, anyone can take pictures. A few will produce great pictures, but more importantly, look at this video. Look at this line of people in line for the photo booth. Do you notice how many people are smiling, having a great time? They're laughing, they're enjoying themselves. When was the last time you saw a photo booth that had that kind of experience, that had people laughing and giggling and having fun, and the images coming out were awesome?
Yes.
So when the images come out, then memories are captured. Then it becomes amazing. Now you start talking about, how do I amplify that? Hello. Use a projector. Find a wall. Find the ceiling. Any place that's flat and light. Most ceilings will be light. Project the images from the booth onto the ceiling or onto a wall. make them as big as you can possibly make them without being too big.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because you want the client who's wandering around the room to always be able to look up and go, wow, there's Bill and Sue having a great time. There's Sue and Sally. Wow, there's Grandma and Grandpa. Look at that great picture. These are the things that imprint on the consumer, on the client. And they also imprint on every guest, because the people sitting at their table having a cocktail will see the fun going on in the photo booth, and they're going to go, we haven't been in a photo booth in years, hon. Let's go get in the photo booth.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. And guess what? You don't have to have a zillion props and clothes and all this other stuff. You have to create magic. And creating magic is by creating a transfer of energy, of personality from you to them. And when you do that, they become enthused, and it doesn't matter. They don't need cash me in or cash me outside, or they don't need prop signs. They don't need boas. They don't need hats. They don't need glasses. And nothing against all of those things. But ultimately, you want to be focused on generating organic enthusiasm. And when you can do that, those become differentiators between you and everybody else. Now, obviously, if there's a bunch of people doing this high level, well, you want to form a collective. You want to become members of the Photo Booth Association and help us start a local chapter in your market where we help you transform colleagues or competitors into colleagues. Now you're working with each other. You're not reducing your prices. You're not viewing each other as a threat, but actually as, if I'm booked or I don't really want to do that event on that date, I've got 2 or 3 great guys that I can refer in my market. So it's all about creating a unique selling proposition. The thing to remember is people buy emotionally.
Yep.
And they justify logically. You'll hear it from every sales trainer, but it's true. When it comes to these things like events, people hire on high school rules. They hire who they like, and then they figure out a way to justify whatever it is that person wants to be paid, because they want you at their party. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. One of the things, Drax, as you're talking about this, I'm going to take a step back, and for those of you who are not DJs, you'll have to go with me, because you probably have seen a multi-system company who basically was looking for warm bodies.
Yep.
And photo booth, I've heard in the photo booth world, this booth is so simple that basically you just need a warm body as an attendant. Drax, what you're talking to us about tonight, and what makes a lot of sense to create that emotion and that fun, isn't just a warm body. You're going to need a person who has skill, who has talent, who has energy, charisma, and can basically, in some ways, I'm almost thinking, have more of an outgoing personality than a DJ would, or even a photographer, because this person has to be on every 2 minutes with a different person. Boom, boom,
exactly.
boom, boom.
And photo booth has the multi-system operators that just look for operators. And there's 2 schools of thought. There's I just want a warm body that knows how to hook up all the cables and plug it in. That's one school of thought. My school of thought, if I were to do it, would be I want to have X number of me's, if you will. Mm-hmm. Not my personality, but somebody gregarious, outgoing, that's going to engage that audience. Because ultimately, what's going to sell all of the potential clients in that room, let's face it, if you're doing weddings, if you're doing a wedding every Saturday with your photo booth, the odds are there's at least a dozen people in that room getting married in the next 18 months, or know somebody getting married in the next 18 months. You have instant audition power over a couple of dozen people every Saturday night.
Yes.
So again, you want to look at whoever you hire to work for your company. They're a brand ambassador. They're not a laborer. They're not somebody saying, would you like fries with that? They are a brand ambassador. They are the reason people will hire you. And guess what? You can have the best booth, produce really great pictures, but if most people see your operator sitting on their butt surfing Facebook, they're not going to be impressed, and they will probably not have a favorable brand impression. A clue to all operators and owners: don't sit on your butt looking at your phone. Be standing up, engaging the audience. If nothing else, look around the back of your photo booth. Look like you're doing something. Look like you're checking something. Look like you're paying attention to what's happening, because this is the element of looking like this isn't something you just buy for $5,000 and drop it on the floor and make money with it, because it isn't that way. And the proof of that is ask anybody who's dropped it on the floor with an inexperienced operator, or even one they've trained, that didn't know what to do when the printer wouldn't load, when the printer didn't initialize. Oops.
Yeah.
You know, or their computer puked and Windows 10 decided, I am really getting tired of pop-up lights.
They're not loving you today.
They're not loving me today. Normally I get 50 minutes to an hour. But so what you want to do is you want to know, you know, I can send my operator out, and if Windows, for some reason, even though I've turned it off 1,000 times, tries to initiate an auto update, they know immediately how to stop it and get back to a good place and get back in business. Because the last thing you don't want to do is stop the party while you putz with your photo booth. This brings up backup gear. In terms of differentiating yourself, how many photo booth operators actually carry backup equipment? Backup camera, backup computer, backup printer. A lot of money, but you should have it, because guess what? They're paying you a lot of money, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 to provide photo booth services. If it pukes an hour into the party, do you just say, oh, well, or do you spend the next 45 minutes trying to figure it out? Or do you say, no worries, boom, 2 minutes, I know it's the printer, boom, I swap the printer, and I'm good.
We're good to go.
Exactly. These are the things that you got to do, and you just got to do it intrinsically and know what you're doing. Because without it, you're basically just shooting fish in a barrel. You're going to lose. There's no ifs or ands or buts. You will get caught and you will get burned, and it will not be fun.
Exactly. About the time someone says, you know, you ruined my party and now you have to pay for it, and there's going to be a judge somewhere that'll say, yep.
Exactly. And on a future episode, we'll talk all about contracts, earned money, because just because they signed a contract doesn't mean you've earned their money. Even if they want to cancel 3 weeks out, you better be able to demonstrate you've earned the money.
Yeah, that will be a good one. I've been on both sides of that one, unfortunately.
Exactly. You know, so I guess to wrap up this segment, really try to define what makes you different, what makes you more interesting, what makes you a better value. Because remember, in the absence of value, everybody shops on price.
Okay. Great. Okay, our last section. We're going to talk in this one about the concept of should you do a do-it-yourself photo booth. Drax, I'm sure you're in a few of those groups, but I think I'm in 4 or 5 different photo booth DIY that people have invited me to, and it's just interesting. We've seen this in the DJ realm. I mean, if DJs could build amplifiers and speakers, I'm sure we'd see it at this level. But it seems that everybody is trying to make a photo booth. At the photo booth show, I mean, you and I were walking around. You could see some were basically DJs who made something in their garage, and then you could see people who were true talented manufacturers.
Yeah,
that were there.
There was those selling garbage and those that were selling clean, professional-looking products.
Yeah, exactly. And let's talk about why, if a person should look at that as a way, or what the benefits are of going with something that's already produced and out there.
Well, first of all, I don't think anybody should DIY their first photo booth. I just don't. I think you should get your feet wet with a working design, a known, proven, stable, reliable photo booth. Because the last thing you want to do is launch your business with a homebrew project that looks really great, but you get out there and you find out, oh man, I cut some corners and now they're biting me because it's not operating, Windows isn't booting, Mac isn't booting, the printer's not initializing, the camera's not staying stable, it keeps wanting to switch back to auto mode. All of these things are real problems. So when you buy a booth, yes, it'll cost you more to buy one manufactured by a quality manufacturer. The Photo Booth Association can tell you dozens of great manufacturers. So the issue that you want to come back to is really coming around to the idea of DIY is great. You can save quite a bit of money, but you'll spend a lot more time. And don't get me wrong, I built my own speakers. It was an itch I had to scratch. But in the end, what do I play with? EV-ETX speakers. I still love the ones I built, have a lot of pride in it, but the ones that roll out, they're ETX.
Yeah.
Photo booth? Yeah, I've toyed with the idea of making one, and I've got a couple friends that have built some. They've said, oh, I like the way that looks. I'm going to make my own version of it for me, not to resell it, just to have their own version. But they did it professionally. They went and used a real machine shop, hired real people to do the construction, you know, as far as the fabrication. And what they had looks like $1 million. And so if you're not extremely handy with tools, don't become the tool guy, because guess what? There's a reason people work with tools, make money. It's because they're good at it. Be good at what you're good at. And so with it, if you want to look at a DIY project, understand that the first one will probably cost you more than what it costs to buy one. Unless you're not really DIY, unless you're really just going, oh, well, I can buy a box from here and a camera from here and a printer from here, and I can do all these things from here, and then I can just deal with that, then okay, but it's not really DIY. To me, DIY means do it yourself, which means I came up with a box idea, I built the box, or I modified the box. But let me please say one thing. Don't use medicine cabinets. Don't use mailboxes. Don't use goofy, crappy looking stuff that looks garbagey, that looks like it belongs on an episode of Honey Boo Boo or something, you know?
Trailer trash stuff.
Yeah. You know, if you're going to build something DIY, make it look such that before you ever take it to a party, at least 20 or 30 other people will tell you, that looks boss. That looks really good attention to details, good finish. Here's another clue. Rub your hands all over it. If you get slivers, if you're doing a wooden, old school photography sort of thing, not a good deal. If you run it over metal and you get cut or sliced, not a good deal. Because guess what? You or your operator is going to be handling it, and whatever it is how it is, and that's what it will be. So again, to me, the DIY concept is, I'm not anti-DIY. I just figure, you know what? I can make a lot more money selling photo booth services than I can building them.
Right.
And again, I built speakers. I didn't go into business. I built them for my own personal satisfaction. Mm-hmm. It was a hobby, get my mind off of other stuff. If you want to build a photo booth to get your mind off other stuff, and you go, you know, this turned out really awesome, I think I'll use it. Great. But in the end, do what you do best. If you're a photographer, what makes you think you want to start building something? Have you built anything else in your life? Did you build your house, build a deck, build a gazebo? You know, have you built a car? Have you restored a classic automobile? No. If you haven't a history of doing things DIY, of building things, fixing your own home repairs, why would you start off trying to build something? Because in the end, here's the deal. A camera is going to cost you X amount of dollars. A shell is going to cost you X amount of dollars. A printer is going to cost you X amount of dollars. You'll have money for cables, and then all the computer, the tablet or the touchscreen that you're going to use is going to cost X amount of dollars. Yep. In the end, that's probably going to be about 60, 70-ish% of what it costs to actually just buy a finished working booth. So let's just say a great booth is 10 grand. And we all know that 10 grand buys you like an exceptional booth. And you can find a lot of great midline, high quality booths for half that. So I saved $4,000. I'll need to replace this thing in 5-6 years because it won't be in style.
Yep.
It'll have issues that's going to need repair. What did I save? What could I make instead of spending my time designing and building something, but instead take my time to actually go out and sell my services and make something that people actually wanted to buy, which is hiring me to do their event.
And again, getting away from that gear side and more to the talent side of making a fun experience.
Exactly. Because gear is gear is gear. And in the end, do it because you have an itch to scratch is one thing. But I can pretty much guarantee you, unless you have manufacturing experience, your first several versions will probably suck. You'll think they'll be great, but the reality is they'll probably suck. They will not be as reliable as something that has been engineered. Because believe it or not, it takes more than a couple screws and some Velcro to put an all-in-one computer in a box up against a hole. It takes more than, a couple of water heater straps to position a camera or a printer into a box. And in the end, you want it to look good. You want the cables to be dressed. You want to have a manufactured approach. And if you don't have a manufactured approach, maybe a good idea is buy your first booth. Then when you go, man, I love this, it works really well, go, you know what? Maybe I'll touch in and try my hand at building one similar to this myself. I always recommend against it because, in my opinion, John, there are far too many great booths at super affordable prices that it doesn't make a lot of sense for the amount of hours that you got to spend to do it. And again, this is going off I'm actually designing and fabricating something. I'm not just ordering a case from company A, buying a camera from company B, and a printer from company C, and a computer from company D, and chucking them in a box. Because that point's not really DIY. That's just buying parts and assembling. It's not really DIY.
Yeah, for sure. And the idea, though, that it isn't DIY, but you were walking around the number of cases companies that they're building the shell, a nice clean shell, and maybe you don't want to have this type of a tablet, you want this type of a tablet, or maybe you've already got the camera. I mean, these companies are willing to work with a person. In many cases, they're selling, here it is with nothing, and here it is with this, and hey, we'll put whatever you want in there. So,
well, exactly, and a good example is many of the major manufacturers, particularly as we move to the tablet-centric devices, they're offering their booth with or without the tablet, with or without the printer. They're giving you the option. So why would you want to build your own versus say, hey, you know what? I can save a grand or so and get this booth that looks gorgeous. It's all designed well. It builds well. It travels well. And I can put my own tablet in it because, hey, guess what? There's properly engineered brackets to hold my tablet.
Yes.
There's proper place to mount my printer, and there's raceways and proper places to affix the proper cabling. These things are things we don't think of at the start when we're thinking of a DIY, but if you deal with the companies that exist out there that make booths, many of them offer their products in a self-assembled opportunity where you can save a little money and add your own camera because you want a better camera than what they sell or a lesser camera. So I just recommend, again, supporting the industry, because here's the other problem with DIY. Everybody loved that the Photo Booth Expo was 120-some thousand square feet of exhibit space.
Yep.
And everybody loved a $60 pass for the Photo Booth Expo. That pass was subsidized by all those people in the exhibit hall.
For sure.
When that exhibit hall goes down to a third of what it is, that pass will probably go up to several $100s, $400 or $500. So you have to think about shows for all industries, DJ, photography, photo booth. The educational content and these shows are put on largely on the generous donations of the exhibitors that want to meet you. And as such, support them. They're great people. Imaging Spectrum, a great company. Mike Bender, great people. Brian Ginsberg, great people.
Yeah.
Tons of great companies out there. Find companies that you like. Be loyal to them. Stick with them. Support them. Because they won't turn their back on you. And guess what? When it's 9 o'clock on a Saturday night and something happens with the booth you have, you'll be able to call and say, hello, I have a problem. How do I fix this really quick? And because you've been a loyal customer, somebody is going to be inclined to want to respond to you.
Yes. Yeah.
If you bought a bunch of parts from Booths R Us, good luck with that.
Yeah. And what do you have? Oh, I'm sorry. We can't help you there. Drax, thank you much. We need to wrap things up. Good chat. Three good topics for you guys. In the description, if you guys click refresh on that, is the playlist for the different booth interviews. You guys can go check that out. There've been some great conversations going on about insurance and contracts and subcontract Drax. We've got our next 4 topics for the next show. So,
and if any of those have questions, they can reach me at thephotoboothassociation.com or hit me up on Facebook, and I can help them if they're not going to wait until our next episode.
Tori is in our chat room there, and Tori is an engineer and can create. She is one that can create this kind of stuff. She's got the skills and the tools.
Good.
Me?
Tori, come up with something that's never been seen before. Don't simply mimic an existing design that someone else has created. Come up with something totally fresh, because if you got the engineering skills, come up with something that's crazy different. An S booth, where it's shaped like an S. Come up with something that's completely a unique experience.
Yeah, she's got the skill. I've seen some of the work and awesome stuff compared to me that I would be up there with 2 2x4s and an iPad duct tape to it.
Well, as hard as it is to laugh, go search Google.
Yeah.
You'll find some of the most god-awful things at events passing off as photo booths.
Yeah.
One was a DLSR on a tripod.
I've seen that a few times over.
A DLSR on a tripod against a naked wall with a printer on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't even on a stand, so the guests can get the print at an appropriate height. Instead, the printer's on the ground. You got to bend over and pick up the print from the ground.
Whose idea was that?
Yeah, some stupid moron in Timbuk nowhere.
Yeah, to save money. It was cheap, It was a cheap thing.
It was.
Drax, once again, thank you very much, gang.
Awesome.
Links in the description below for the Photo Booth Association's link is down there, and the playlist is down there, and then the next show is down there. So,
we'll be back.
We will be back
more photo booth things.
And talk more photo booth. We'll be back in about 10 minutes with our second show tonight.
Awesome, John.